Dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome back to the final part of the forum with the discussion on strategic planning and budgeting.
This session will be opened by the keynote address by Ms. Besiana Ninka, project manager in the field of Interact program management at Interact program.
And I'm honored that later we can invite on the stage the moderator, Ms. Andrea Ierina, former national coordinator for EUSDR, EUSR and EUSALP.
So enjoy the final event of the forum and let us go.
Hello, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, it's a great honor for me being here today in this panel. As we heard also during yesterday in the high-level panel discussion, we live in changing times, in very special times, requiring us to take responsible and mindful further actions. Over the last few years, with the COVID crisis, the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, environmental and social challenges, public budgets have spent a lot of money. And that means that probably there will be less to distribute in the future. We are living in times of transition, the energy and digital transition. And let's not forget also the demographic transition. And if we put all that together, the financial perspective, the different types of crises, the different types of transitions, that all play out territorial and space. And they all, in a way or another, tend to make inequalities between people and between spaces. As we can see, all these challenges, all these issues that confront us are intricate and interconnected. Experience has taught us that none of these challenges can be effectively and efficiently tackled by a single action of a single stakeholder or a single region or a single country. In order not to fail, in order to be pragmatic, we need to join our efforts, elaborate joint solutions, and strengthen the collaboration between countries, regions, initiatives, activities, and especially people. It requires a number of capacities in order to achieve that. The magnitude of those challenges implies that we all need to punch above our own weight. We need to become stronger on what we are today. It also means that we need to become flexible, agile, and much better in navigating uncertainty. We also need to become extremely good at mobilizing resources, especially financial resources, but also people, players, and stakeholders to become active throughout the territories. We need to mobilize financial resources in order to see what really has to be done and what can be done. The different levels of decision makers and different sectors of or policies come together and direct their efforts for the common good. We need to have a shared commitment to act where we want to go. We need to have a shared commitment to take actions towards our envisaged future. And if we put all this together, it is asking for good governance. This very principle has been, and it is, at the core of the EU strategy for the Danube region. Today we focus on a topic that has been on the agenda of the EU strategy for the Danube region, but also for other macro-regional strategies debate since their establishment. namely how to best use the macro-regional strategies as the cooperation framework to make investments and funding programs work more impactful, more sustainable, and efficient in the long term. The process we refer to as embedding, especially within the context of EU accession countries and mainstreaming IPA 3 and DKI funds in the Danube region. And interact, we see embedding not as a merely cumbersome requirement, but rather as an opportunity to foster harmonized development across regions. To us, it's about bridging policies, strategies, financial instruments, and practically streaming resources and connecting activities delivered on the ground for the people. It is all done for the benefit of all. It's obvious that single initiative, a single fund, or a single project, no matter how outstanding it can be, alone cannot solve the complex challenges faced by the whole region. Just imagine a puzzle, where the background for the puzzle is a challenge, and every single piece of the puzzle represents a country, a region, a project, a program, or an initiative. Taken along, these pieces may tell their story, but this is only part of the whole story. It is a tiny part of the overall picture. They are all needed, but at the same time, taken alone, they are disconnected, and their potential remain untapped. Mutual dependencies. We are all mutually dependent on each other. We are not isolated islands, and we live and work in a world of interdependencies. That's why when we bring together the pieces of the puzzle and embed them in a common framework, we have a complete picture of a Danube region prospering through diversity. Now you may ask, do we have any concrete example proving that synergies between different funds were built and they brought some impactful significance? I would like to start with an example from a neighboring strategy, the EU strategy for the Adriatic and Ionian region, namely the cooperation around the Prespa Lake. In this example, coordination between Interreg IPA funding program and IPA and ERDF mainstream funds have been ensured. The activities related to the border crossing Markova Noga-Limos between the Republic of North Macedonia and Greece in the Prespa region were strategic activities to facilitate the accessibility at Limos border crossing were financed from Interreg IPA, CBC, Greece, North Macedonia, and the land connections further supported from the mainstream IPA funds. Now, let's move to the Danube region. One of the topics that require coordinated response is flood risk management in the Danube River Basin. This topic addressed by regional, national, and Interreg programs. For example, flood risk management measures, including joint works for flood prevention on the Danube region, its tributary rivers, and the Danube Basin, are supported within the framework of the Interreg IPA CBC program Romania-Serbia. These actions can be complementary and further supported by the IPA mainstream fund investments linked to the integrated flood management. Flood risk management measures have been also addressed in Eastern neighborhood context, for example, in the former ENI CBC neighborhood program for Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, and Ukraine. The current program being part of the family of Interreg programs financed also by DKI funding. There are also other examples of projects striving for effective flood prevention and harmonized activities in these four countries through cross-border cooperation. The flagship nature-based solution for flood risk reduction of the Danube strategy then helps to link these measures to a broader set of activities carried out by partners and regions. Flagships indeed are an excellent way to link the already ongoing initiatives and activities in the Danube region, showing progress towards the change. At the same time, implementing the flagships require close cooperation, coordination, commitment, capacities, implementation system setup, and continuous support by all the relevant stakeholders, macro-regional stakeholders, program and projects. They all play a role. In Interact, we are supporting cross-macro-regional collaboration and development, and we are supporting Interreg and Interreg IPA programs in finding synergies between projects already at the application stage, thus allowing closer coordination already at early stages of the project implementation. So we are working on a pilot, which is called INDEX and stands for Interreg Data Exchange. And this pilot is a platform for data sharing and visualization. The platform enables, in this case, Interreg IPA programs to see what other programs are doing in the area, in the macro-region area. Index identifies touching points and enable cooperation potential between projects right from the project application stage. Through data sharing, programs can estimate the impact of their work beyond the program area. In this way, Index supports programs in finding potential synergies across their funded projects. Being able to see the activities over the shared territories, for example, in a Danube region context, Index enables programs to identify and further explore the need for projects to tackle common challenges and make cooperation easier. Before I conclude, I would like to point out that we see that funding programs are open to cooperation, and they have expressed a genuine interest and willingness in building closer collaboration for the common good. However, we are aware that cooperation and coordination is not an easy process, it's a very complex process with its own bumps on the way. And based on this experience, I would like to list the following. Cooperation across programs and with the macro-regional stakeholders is often not seen as a priority, nor it is as easy. There are operational matters to respect and address jointly. The added value of collective effort is not always clear and obvious. And third point, there is a question of who is the one to bring and connect individual activities and initiatives together. Is it the strategy? Is it the program? Or it is both? Here, the framework of the managing authorities networks, supported by the Danube Strategy Point and the flagship highlighted by the Danube Strategy, like the flagship nature-based solution for flood risk reduction I mentioned earlier on, could be of great help. In addition to this, in our work with funding programs, we have seen that there is a need for a continuous and constant dialogue between the funding programs and the EU macro-regional stakeholders to bring macro-regional initiatives forward. Therefore, today's discussion is very important, not only as a moment to take stock of the process so far, but also as an opportunity to discuss the way forward. What could be further improved or done in concrete terms in order to ensure the intention set in the programs for the 21-27 programming period are translated into actions of macro-regional importance? Let's not forget that cooperation is a must and not a luxury, and we need to get cooperation outside the special niche. Collaboration across borders, regions, programs and projects helps to explore and exploit complementarities between synergies, between places and between funds for the good of the macro region and, most importantly, for the people living in it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Besiana, for these very inspiring words and very important facts that you have just mentioned. Cooperation and coordination are definitely among them. And as you showed, they can even work, which is a very good, let's say, inspiration for our further work today. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear panelists, dear guests, dear Danube friends, welcome also from my side to this last panel of the already 12th Danube Strategy Annual Forum. The annual forum is titled The Decade of the Future, and there is a very strong commitment on the EU side for the enlargement in 2030. But with the EU macro-regional strategies, we don't have to wait for the formal enlargement. We already work together. Namely, in EU macro-regional strategies, by definition, the non-EU member states work by definition with the EU member states. And this meaning, among other things, that in order to implement what we have commonly agreed needs to be embedded into national programming and budgeting processes. This is a very complex and demanding task. To ease the burden, there are EU pre-accession funds, IPA and NDC funds, who can contribute in easing these financial constraints as the macro-regional elements are eligible for funding. So what the candidate countries experiences with the embedding process? How did the new priorities find their way in the national budgeting and programming priorities and also the pre-accession funds framework? How does coordination work? What achievements can we already celebrate? What have we learned? What have we gained? And what can we share with other macro-regional strategies and other countries? These and much more we are going to explore today. But before to start, let me introduce our panelists, and I'm delighted that today with me are, first is definitely our keynote speaker, Ms. Besiana Ninka. Let me say a few words about you, Besiana. Besiana comes from the Interact. This is the Mastermind Interact project program, supporting the coordination, the implementation and institutional development of EU macro-regional strategies. And Besiana is a project manager in the field of Interact program management. She makes cooperation evident and supports stakeholders in Western Balkans countries and beyond in exchanging experience and building networks, as well as training actors from the public sector and civil society. We have also Mrs. Zara Halilovic. She holds the position of the Assistant Director at the Directorate for European Integration of the Council of Ministers of Bosnia and Herzegovina for the EU Accession Assistance Program. She acts as the head of National IPA Coordination Office and participates in various regional bodies for management of EU funds. It was supposed that today with us is also a representative from Moldova, Mr. Eugenie Harabara. He's Secretary State General at the Ministry of Infrastructure and Regional Development in Moldova, but unfortunately his flight schedule was changed, so Mr. Harabara is not with us today. But we have Mr. Bojan Vujovic, who is the Director General for the EU funds at the Ministry of European Affairs in Montenegro, head of operating structure for cross-border cooperation program, and head of the working group for EU negotiations under Chapter 22, which is about regional policy and the coordination of structural instruments. He is also national coordinator for the macro-regional strategies, both for the Danube strategy and Adriatic-Ionian strategy of the Montenegro. We also have Mrs. Sanda Šimić-Tambulić, the acting assistant minister at the Ministry of European Integration of the Republic of Serbia in the Division for Planning, setup and monitoring of the system for cross-border and transnational cooperation programs, and the coordination of EU macro-regional strategies. And we have Mr. Rostislav Tomenchuk, the Director of Department for International Technical Assistance Coordination of the Secretariat of the Cabinet of Ministries of Ukraine. He has a long experience in working in and with the managing authorities and national authorities in accession countries and in cooperation with the European Union countries. Once again, warm welcome. We will try to have this session as interactive as possible. So in the second part of our panel, we will invite you, the audience, to ask our esteemed panelists additional questions of the matter. We will use Slido application. All you need for this is your smartphone, nothing else. Even though our time is rather limited, but we have another 10 minutes more since Mr. Harabara is not with us. We hope to have 2 rounds of the discussion with our panelists before we turn to the questions from you, the audience. In the first round of the discussion, panelists, you have 7 minutes to elaborate on the question, and on the second, only up to 3. So please stick to the time limit, as we would like to give all of you the same opportunity for sharing the thoughts with us. But in the end, after the questions from the audience, I would like to pose to all of you a closing question. And this goes to you, Besiana, too, as our keynote speaker. And the question will be, what takeaway should the policymakers, the coordinators, and the stakeholders keep in mind as they work on the implementation of agreed Danube actions? But I will come back to this at the end. So, let's start with the first round of our questions. Ms. Sanda Šimić-Stambolić, I will start with Serbia. So, can you tell us which specific priorities or the project from the Danube are of a strategic importance for Serbia? And in particular, we are interested on the approach that you have taken in embedding these priorities into the national planning and budgeting process in order, of course, to implement what we have agreed. We would also like to know how will these priorities contribute to reaching Serbia's strategic objectives, and while simultaneously contributing to the development of the wider Danube region. And in addition, I would ask you also to highlight the main challenges that you have been confronted while embedding the priorities into your own national system, and where in all this setup are the IPA funds. Please.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, dear panelists, dear friends, we are all doing cooperation, so we are, over the years, became very good friends, and also with Andrea, you fighting along the way of implementation of Danube strategy, which is of huge importance for Serbia, since a huge portion, actually the longest portion of Danube is running through Serbia. And as my minister yesterday said, she was born in Danube. I was born also on the river Danube, and it really, when I mention it, I still have the smell of that river, wonderful smell of the Danube River when walking near. It's a difficult question, actually, especially for IPA countries, since we have EU strategic framework for us. And then we have national framework, and then we have response to EU framework for us. EU framework for us is actually for the whole Western Balkans. So we have several strategies: economic investment for Western Balkans, green agenda, digital agenda for Western Balkans. We have WBAF, Western Balkans Investment Framework. We have agenda for research, innovation, youth, skills, culture, and sports. We have Western Balkan Enterprise Development and Innovation Facility. All of those strategies are for Western Balkans, EU. Then European Commission is, in accordance with new framework of IPA, wrote IPA programming framework for the Western Balkans, and we prepared strategic response to the IPA programming framework. So, while preparing that strategic response, Serbia needed to say, okay, what we have in Serbia is this transnational cooperation programs, CBC programs, annual programs, mainstream programs, etc. And we have macro-regional strategies, and this is how, in next 7 years, we will implement IPA on our territory. We did embed, let's say, into this strategic response the priorities of the strategies that we are participating in. However, the real work, real life programming is enormously difficult, and we are mentioning it all the time, since yes, we do have regional priorities, but on Western Balkan level of European Commission, and the priorities that are coming from the national level. And it is, they rarely collide, but they are not in total harmony. But recently, we have really rose an attention to macro-regional strategies, and we even started to participate in some working groups for preparation of national strategies. For example, we embedded, and it is very well addressed, in the national strategy for sustainable urban development, which is really a big step forward that we have taken, and we are planning to do that with every national strategy that is coming to implementation. What are the challenges? Coordination. People who are implementing things on national level, they're rarely used to cooperation. They're thinking about what is on national level the priority. They're of interest of only what is happening inside of the borders, national borders. Of course, where we really need to cooperate, where it is really necessary, like transport sector or water navigation, or these kinds of issues. There we take into account the priorities of neighboring country and of the strategy. But it is very difficult. And also, you know, we are implementing national envelopes. Yes, we embedded the strategy, but whether we will do it at the same time, whether we will do it like, you know, Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia. So it's very difficult to coordinate it in a way of priorities and in a way of timing. But we will learn how to do it. What are the priorities of Serbia? It is water management. It's absolutely a big priority. We have national plans for water management, plan for the Danube and the Sava rivers, but we have invested a lot of IPA funds in water supply, wastewater treatments, and solid waste treatment. So this infrastructural part of the strategy is very important, but that doesn't mean that culture is not important, and also innovations, knowledge society as well. In new IPA, and this is good news, let's say, European Commission introduced multi-annual programming, and this is good news for us, because this annual programming of IPA was a nightmare, because it is very short term, and it is very fragmented. Yes, thank you, Zara. Exactly that. It is very fragmented, and it's not cohesive, and it's not strategic. So what is a good news that, okay, we still have annual programs, absolutely. But the countries that do have indirect management, we had an opportunity to make multi-annual programs. So we have 2 operational programs that we are now preparing. They're still not approved. But we are preparing the programs for window 3 and 4. Sorry for the wording. It is window 3 is dealing with environment and climate change, with the actions that are covering transport, digital economy, energy, etc. And window 4 that is dealing with education, employment, social protection on member state language, ESF. So we are preparing those 2 operational programs, and we did take absolutely embedded the priorities of the strategy, which is very important because they're multi-annual, as I said. So I gather that this is, in a nutshell, the response to the question.
Thank you, Sanda, very much for this, I would say, honest reply in a very challenging environment, but there is a way out. Now I would like to go to Montenegro with a more or less the same kind of a question. Which are the priorities, which is the approach and the main challenges where you see, and whether IPA funds are actually easing the embedding process or adding to the complexity? Mr. Bojan Vujović, please.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, it is really a pleasure to be here today and to address some of these very important questions and topics for all our countries. Sanda, in practical terms, explained most of the things which are indeed a common challenge for our countries. This is why I really like this regional and macro-regional forum, because every time I have this strange feeling that or Sanda or Zara are living somewhere in my head and saying practically the similar things. I will start more or less with the fact that participation of Montenegro in the USDR is really important for the country. And when we speak about the priorities and the way how we actually embed these priorities of the macro region into our national planning system, it is, for us at least in the ministry, which is coordinating the participation in the strategy, for us it is always important to raise the awareness. And this is where we start from usually, to speak with the other ministries, with institutions, with stakeholders, how actually important the strategy is and why we should work further on embedding of the objectives into our national planning system. And usually when we have these specific meetings, workshops, whatever kind of events, visibility events related to the strategy, one of the most common questions is, but why we are speaking about this? Danube River is not passing through Montenegro at all. This is one of the first things that we usually tend to explain to our colleagues, that it is not about being on the shores of Danube, although it's very nice, but we don't have the opportunity, but how actually we can contribute jointly to the development of the macro region. And as you know, Montenegro, being a small country, has quite specific priorities for the overall economic development. One of them is being actually the touristic destination, and tourism is one of our primary development goals, in addition to agriculture and many other service-oriented activities or branches. But in practical terms, I would say that the first step of embedding the objectives of the strategy, of the Danube strategy in our internal planning system would be this important link with the development of tourism, which is also contained in the pillar 1 of the strategy, saying that sustainable development of tourism is related to also to development of transport infrastructure, but also to the need to preserve the environment. And this was, in a way, our key starting point. Then I tried through these years to explain to the colleagues in different ministries that if we want to actually embed these strategic priorities of the macro region, we should start with our national strategies, because our national strategies are important not only because of this strategic vision that we define, but also because they are the base for national budget planning, because everything that you have in one key national strategy, especially if these strategies are key, once you then have a base to plan it in your national budget, and also to plan it in the budget of the related to the EU funds. And this is why we managed to tackle several key important national strategies, like the regional development strategy of Montenegro, which is a kind of key document related to our internal regional development policy. This is something which actually is where we tried to create the same principle as in the EU, where the regional policy is an instrument which provides more or less the opportunities for equal development of the regions. Also internally in Montenegro, using this regional development strategy, we tried to create the conditions for equal development of the northern, central and coastal region of Montenegro, where currently maybe the coastal region is most developed compared to the central, and the less developed region is on the north. So it was very important to tackle these key priorities in relation to this strategy. In addition, we also have a national sustainable development strategy, which is based on these key elements also contained in the Danube strategy, but also several other strategic documents which are very important. And then we also come back to the point which Sanda mentioned, which is planning of EU funds, because if you have the national part of the financing, then EU should ideally come as a co-financer of our nationally funded activities. It is not always the case in our countries, because the national budgets are limited and very often with several constraints. But EU funds come here as a kind of fresh money, which help us to fund some of our key priorities. And here we have also several challenges. Okay, we took into consideration, of course, the macro-regional strategies when planning the strategic response, which Sanda mentioned. But at the end of the day, situation in IPA countries is a bit different compared to the member states, and this was always the key limitation that we had in embedding process, because the level of autonomy that EU member states have in designing strategic planning and implementation of EU funds is not the same, unfortunately, in IPA countries, because usually all key decisions related to our EU funds are made in Brussels, although we always try to improve ownership and act constructively. EU is the biggest donor in Montenegro, at least. At the end of the day, decides about the funds and the way how these will be used. These decisions are made in Brussels. They are made by DG NEAR as a line DG dealing with the IPA and the way how it is implemented. And what we noticed is that actually sometimes this embedding limitation is related to the fact that sometimes even in the European Commission line, policy DGs are not they're not involved as they should be in this process. So there is sometimes even lack of understanding on that side, in addition to the limitations that we have on the national level. So at the end of the day, I'm really happy with what we did actually in Montenegro so far, because with all these limitations, we managed to raise the awareness about the importance of the strategy objectives, to to have these objectives throughout our key strategic documents, and to have already the first projects contributing to the achieving of the strategy's objectives. So to start with, this is a kind of overall picture that we have in Montenegro.
Thank you. Very complex. Actually really needed a good coordination and cooperation, but apparently also on the other side. So let's say both at national and at the EU level, that might also help. Rostislav, Ukraine was the first non-EU country to take over the presidency of the Danube strategy in 2020. Again, congratulations. This also means that you have raised additional, I would say, experience through the presidency period. So based on your experience on the Danube presidency, what is essential in your meaning in the process of setting up the effective management and monitoring system to cope with all the challenges that we have just mentioned? And in addition, how can the Danube strategy help and its priorities to contribute in the recovery and reconstruction within your country, but also on your way to the EU, your EU agenda?
Thank you, colleagues. And first of all, I want to tell thank you in this annual forum about our chance, our time to have a presidency in the Danube strategy, and this is it's a very unique situation for us also. And when we begin in this process, we also fully understand that we can be the first non-EU countries. And what I want to add about this, first of all, that I am very happy that in situation when the Danube strategy, one of much more difficult strategy, because we have EU candidates, we have the non-EU candidates, we have the member states. It's not easy for moving forward, for understanding different process, for open for the different instruments. And in my experience, I understand it's not easy to search of compromise, to understand what you can and what we are ready to do. And in this situation, for me, it's I'm very happy that our strategy, it's at the same time, is very flexible. When the strategy ready to give an answer for new challenges, ready to be open for discussion about the new rules, new format, new version. Because, of course, when we begin, we are not sure that the strategy tells us, no, sorry, you are not a member, maybe later when you will be a member. And we also understand that we can hear this answer. But I'm really very happy that really our strategy is very flexible and understanding. About the cooperation, it's one of priority of our presidency that strategy also opening and understand what is the cooperation. And cooperation not only for the name of title, it's a sum of process. It's a process where you have a trio of presidency, where you have two countries who support, who assist before your presidency, and you help with after presidency, where you can share with your best experience of your presidency in this trio format. And for us, it's also very unique assist in this situation, because we understand we're not alone in presidency. We have the two countries from the both sides. And the next step, it was a very good proposal from Slovakia when we understand that we can to crash our presidency because beginning a war, and we understand this cannot be finally happy in our presidency. And it's also good solutions where when our neighbor country proposed to organize an annual forum in his territory in Košice near the border. It's also an example of cooperation in one strategy for understanding what we are doing and how it's important to be in a short distance. And of course, about the priorities, it was also some complicated not also, but some complicated process, because when we begin to think about the presidency, we don't know what is the COVID. When we begin in the actual presidency, we understand this beginning of war. And of course, when we plan in our priorities and how we can to involve these priorities to our national framework, it was something complicated. But the fact is, from the other side, for us it was very important to develop infrastructure and transport logistic topics, and we have, as I continue to add some few points for your question for the previous experts, for the previous speakers, where we have very good examples where we have cooperation in the navigation system, and where we approved David Form. It was also very good, positive, happy case for our joint communication, and also our coordination in priority 9 about the skills. It's also a new challenge for us. It's also a priority for us, whereas the Ministry of Education, who is responsible about this topic, understand how they can to collect, how they can to share best practice, how they can to search different solutions for this reform. Because you in the national level, inside in country, you have the problem, you have a question, and you search an answer. And of course, if you are part of much more bigger community, you can see this practice, you can see the best practice some other countries. And for us also, it's a very good result, and also with presidency, but also in the work of steering group, it's a very good communication with different stakeholders about the different topics. It was a unique challenge for us when we begin in work in the Danube, when we can to propose our different sectoral ministry to have a platform for communication, not about the political process, about the concretely policy, how we development, what we have our new challenges, what we have our answer for this. And of course it was very interesting situation with this when we begin to speak about the instrument what we have. Yeah, we understand that many instruments closed for Ukraine, yeah, and we are beginning to speak with the priority area. We understand that we have on the Danube transnational program, Horizon, Creative Europe, and Erasmus, but some other country to speak about them much more other instrument about the cooperation. And it's also for us was a very big challenge, and we understand how we can to moving with these ideas. And now, of course, what we have now in the situation, my colleague spoke yesterday about the plan of reconstruction. Of course, I also cannot to tell that it's not a normal process of planning, because you must understand that we have a planning for reconstruction. You must have a planning for reconstruction for some point. What about you don't know now? Because in this time, some of building can be destroyed. Now in this time when we spoke about this, and you cannot write about this plan of reconstruction because you don't know what will be tomorrow. And it's also something complicated for the very long planning. And also, yes, maybe I will be stop about this. I will be happy to continue for the next point.
Okay, thank you very much. What actually you told us is that the strategy is a flexible thing. When we started working with the Danube strategy, we thought we have listed all the challenges we need to find the common answer to, but it's far from the whole list. And as you said, list is changing every moment. But what we need to assure is to have the sufficiently flexible ways of cooperating and jointly addressing the challenges. Yes, thank you. And now, last but not least, we go to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Zara, more or less the same question to you. What are the main strategic priorities for Bosnia? Which of them are reflecting the Danube strategy? How you are challenging this very complex process of embedding into the national programming and budgeting system, and where you place the IPA funds in this? Please.
Yes. First, thank you for organizing this panel and for inviting us. All of us from Western Balkans, we are working together, I don't know how many years. It's like half of life now. And it is really demanding job, and at the same time we discovered some special hidden beauty behind that job. And that is actually the beauty of our cooperation, of building common team, even we are coming from different countries. We established so good professional relationship and so good friendship, and I think that all of us fell in love with this idea of EU and cooperation. Definitely cooperation is crucial. I know that very well because I'm a survivor of the war in my country, and I can understand my colleague from Ukraine. And we are really living only when we have communication with our neighbors, with our partners, with our friends, and then we can tell that we are building really something. Relating to your questions, well, European integration process is a framework or panel for all our activities in Bosnia and Herzegovina. What does it mean? It means that Bosnia and Herzegovina as candidate country should that we have an obligation to implement fundamental reforms essential for European integration process. Through specific national strategic documents which should be in line with, I think that Sandra already mentioned, long list of some strategies, EU strategies for Western Balkans, but just tell briefly with the different kind of instruments of enlargement package. Then I'm actually talking about accession-driven national strategic documents. It is a complicated job, especially in the country when we have so many administrative levels. It's necessary always to have consensus, to agree about things, and to include everything what is relevant with for European integration process with some specific our own national needs. But we have a really specific instrument to support implementation of these so costly strategic documents for only our budget. It is unbelievable, actually, that we can implement that. That is a pre-accession instrument, so we our famous IPA. And without IPA, we really can't imagine how we can have fulfillment of our obligations. Another side, we participated in this beautiful strategy for Danube region, which covered large area, including many countries with clear differences. In socioeconomic terms, from, I think, the richest EU member states to less development candidate countries with really specific needs and challenges, such as Bosnia and Herzegovina. But, however, there is something common that actually is motivation for all of us that we are in this strategy. I think the fundamental key words is Danube River, but for me, other key words is enlargement process. That is common challenge for all of us, for EU member states and for candidate countries. And for us as candidate country, Danube strategy is closer to us when it is closer or stronger connected with enlargement process. Then we can easily understand, priorities, measures, and the reason why we are together also in this strategy. Of course, strategy is not about funding, it is about cooperation, but for implementation we always need money. And the other things that I would like to mention, it's also linked with specific EU funds, which should support our common challenges and issues. On our case, that is IPA. And IPA is really amazing. On one side, it's helping you to reach some goals, but on the other side, there is some additional benefit from these complicated, difficult processes of IPA. It's something like sun shining, it's lightening, you know. You can't understand some things if you didn't turn theory into practice, and that is exactly what IPA is doing. And thanks to IPA, our institutions in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and so many of that institutions, including all processes, especially programming of IPA, they have possibility really to better understand priorities of Danube strategies. Also, during preparation of IPA programming documents, we have to describe or to explain, to demonstrate coherence of our national strategic documents with different instruments of enlargement process. In addition to that, with also regional and global strategic documents, including micro-regional strategic documents. And in that moment, when it was necessary, then we learned something else. We actually recognize gaps in our national strategic documents. And thanks to this exercise, we actually recognize the need of inclusion of priority from Danube strategy into our national documents. However, we are lucky because we have possibility to participate in 6 programs for territorial cooperations. And all operational programs of all these 6 programs, more or less, are in line with priorities of Danube strategy. So you can see how actually things are happening even if you are not aware at the first moment how to do it. It's going together because we are working together, and then we can produce result at a level of individual small country in the same time. And when we analyze, so I think that all applicants participating in all priorities of these programs, but I think that main focus is on environment, tourism, culture exchange, innovation, entrepreneurship. And let me just to conclude. This story about bending, I think that is a story about two-way street. We need to think in the same time about strategic planning on macro-regional level and strategic planning on a national level. We need to see interconnection, to be aware about that interconnection. How? On one side, at the level of macro-region, we actually need to make effort, as I mentioned before, to make a stronger link, clear stronger link between macro-regional strategy and these common challenges that is enlargement process. But on the other side, on side of my country example, in the same time, we need to see how we can include and connect priorities from macro-regional strategies into our national budgeting processes during preparation of these documents through adequate methodology of preparation. So not to be always spontaneous, but in the same time actually to think and to see how it's possible. I believe that if we are doing like that then we will produce living symbiosis between strategic planning at macro-regional level and national level.
Thank you, Zara. Thank you for this living symbiosis. This is actually what also Besiana was talking when she was putting the puzzle. And I have a feeling that when we are speaking about the embedding in macro-regional strategies, we are limited to one piece of the puzzle. But what you panelists actually brought to us here today is that this is only one piece of a puzzle, because we act in a more complex environment, and one has to take into the consideration all other elements. And as you, Zara, just nicely mentioned, it's two-way road. We need to confront all the time what is of strategic importance on a wider macro-regional interest and what is the national one. And it has to go one to another, unless we cannot work. But this is a process. This is not a project, and it requires time. And as you, Sandra, you mentioned multi-annual planning. Yes, you cannot solve things within 1 year. It has to go in a little more longer period of timing. So thank you very much for this first round of our discussion. As I promised at the beginning, before the second round, we will now open the Slido application. All the instructions for Slido should be on the screen. What you need is, as I said, the smartphone. Please put the questions to our panelists. Now, before we go to the second round, I would just like that all of us have a look of a very short video of one of the examples of the meaningful project of the candidate country. So can we have a video, please? Thank you. Very short, but meaningful. Besiana, you were speaking about this impact of a good cooperation and cross-border cooperation. Could you reflect a little bit on this video in relation to what you were explaining us in your introductory words, please?
Well, yes, thank you, Andrea. As I mentioned also during the keynote speech, the focus should be on the people. And this example of the project is about people. There are no borders. They are just joining forces in order to assist people. Doesn't matter in which side of the border, but being there when people need it. So I think this should be the most important message we have to keep in mind anytime we try to make these buzzwords we are talking about now, but these are not as easy to digest to the people. What is easy to get their attention to these initiatives is the concrete results on the ground.
Thank you. For the people, this is easy to understand. When we speak about the very strategic things, we have very often difficulty in explaining to people what we are doing and why for. Bojan, you have just mentioned previously that one of the achievements you've got is you increase the awareness. So people understand much more. Montenegro is, in addition to Danube strategy, also the participating in the Adriatic-Ionian strategy. So with your experiences and also increased awareness, how to use IPA funds, how to flow between these different strategies. What do you think? Would your experience be interesting also for other candidate countries? You said you are friends, you share among themselves. But is this on a spontaneous manner, or this is some more, I would say, systematic exchange of the experience, how to move in this very complex process?
Well, at least we try for it to be systematic. But anyway, this video that we just saw triggered me to maybe share a couple of practical experiences. You mentioned the Adriatic and Ionian strategy. It is also a very important platform for Montenegro, and trying to be more close to our citizens in terms of impact of the strategies, because in general terms you can spend days and days speaking about something which an average citizen in Montenegro cannot understand fully, but because we are in this project world, and we try to promote at least strategies in a more simple and user-friendly, I always say user-friendly way. For example, under Adriatic and Ionian strategy, we had the whole campaign of promoting the first maritime protected areas on the Montenegrin coasts, because throughout the last 2 years we introduced 3 maritime protected areas at the part of the Adriatic Sea covering our coast. And this was really a trigger for us to show how, in practical terms, for example, Adriatic-Ionian strategy can be of benefit to the citizens. We produced several shorter and longer documentary videos about the impact that this had on the fishermen around the coast, on the way how it changed their lives, how it contributed to preserving the ecosystems of the coastal areas. We had campaigns through our cities where we had this very interesting videos promoted. So this was one of the ways how we did it. Then we had several events in schools also, trying to speak on this very elementary level with children in elementary or high schools, how strategies impact their possibilities and what we can offer them in some longer term period about related to their improvement of knowledge, skills, possibilities for going to other countries to study or to simply exchange with their friends from the macro region. So this is something which we try to do. Beside that, I think that these 2 strategies in practical terms share many similar priorities, which in our case are also related. I mentioned just blue economy, development of the fishery, but also there is an environmental protection, promotion of resources related to touristic offer. There is cultural and historical exchange, different segments of cross-border cooperation programs and cooperation in general. And it is important, I think, to start with the fact that these 2 strategies are related in a way to the development policy of the macro region, but this development policy of macro region is based on the individual development policies of the countries participating. And when you start with that, then you realize that actually you cannot change your development policy. You have one development policy throughout time, and it is related to your resources and not luckily related to different governments or different political setups. And it is a really important base ground for the cooperation and for the promotion of the strategies as well.
Thank you. Zara, Bosnia and Herzegovina is also participating in both macro-regional strategies. You just recently held the presidency over the Adriatic-Ionian strategy. The fact that you are in two strategies, is this more complicated or more easy? In addition, you have also, you mentioned 6 CBC programs you are coordinated. So these numerous initiatives, numerous programs, does this in addition complicate the situation, or is it basically easing the coordination versus the national strategic programs? Please.
Yeah. Just to share with you my experience, I had office on 18th floor, and one person visited me and said me, oh, how it's easy to forget ordinary people when you are sitting on 18th floor. And it is fact, really. So definitely it is necessary to have so many communications with publicity, with organizations, with ordinary people, and on the other side, then you are getting food. They are feeding you, you know, for your job. For me, it is the same situation with participation in both strategies. On the first view, it looks very complicated, but then you recognize advantages. So the positive aspect of synergies is very well visible and demonstrated through strengthened cooperation with other countries in both regions and all levels, political, diplomatic, operational, which further has positive influence on establishment of stronger and broader partnership. So we are not alone. Necessary for these common issues also. But when you analyze priorities and goals of both strategic documents, then you can see actually that they are similar and there is complementarity. Example. In sector of development, transport and connectivity, Bosnia and Herzegovina can benefit from both strategic documents, you know, to develop maritime transport on south and at the same time to develop transport links along Danube River. Well, it is excellent. It is something useful for entire country, but also good contribution to both region in development of transport and connectivity with additional effects of trade opportunities, economic growth, and so on. Similar things we can find relating to environment, tourism, cultural exchange. We actually benefit from exchange knowledge, information, and resources, and then we can give a contribution like thank you to both regions, you know, that we can have positive impact on countries of both regions. I think that this synergies is so visible when we are talking about capacity building. Example, then I will again talk about EU funds. That is my area. So about management of EU funds. Again, so important for EU enlargement process. And Bosnia and Herzegovina is completely aware about importance of these synergies. And during its presidency on Adriatic Union strategy, we organized together with Slovenian presidency for Danube region. I think that was first time joint meeting with national coordinators of both strategic documents. On which topic? Enlargement again. Yeah, something that is common for all of us, with certain conclusions and recommendation for further step. So, at the beginning it can look horrible, but when you really go inside and to see what you can get, forget difficulties.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving us another thoughts. And Sanda, also Serbia is one of the countries where the macro-regional strategies overlaps. You're also participating in Adriatic Ionia in addition to Danube. Serbia also had the presidency. So actually we have all the candidate countries here that already had the presidency over the macro-regional strategy, which per se is an achievement. But Sanda, for you, we have heard many of comparable experiences. Could you actually think of mentioning few of the positive experiences in this embedding, complex embedding, but there are some positive experiences. Could you share this with us, please?
Thank you very much. Maybe I like better Zara's question because I really have a difficulty in pinpointing, you know, several out of many positive experiences. Why? Because through the macro-regional strategy and through the territorial cooperation programs, actually, our citizens understood the difference. We are evolving, you know. Everybody knows about this 3 levels of cohesion: social, economic, and territorial. Social, economic, after all this period, you know, became easy, you know, and territorial came very recently, and this territorial focus is evolving through every financial perspective and every year, actually. And our citizens now really know that there are things that you can implement better if you are cooperating on macro-regional level. There are things that you can implement better when you're implementing things and thinking about cross-border level, and they understand the difference very, very easily, let's say. So this aspects of territorial cohesion and defining of functional areas, and not political or legal or other kind of definition of territories is something that is growing on our citizens, and they don't anymore think about how we will resolve a problem within national borders or within our municipality, or okay, this we can learn from our neighboring Romanian because we are sharing the same issue, the same challenge that is mainly derived from similar geographical or historical or any other kind of similarities, and that is why we call it function. So really many good examples of cooperation that is really related to these functions of the territories, like definition of some branding of special products that people are producing on similar territories. Then, okay, throughout the Danube we have historical linkages with cooperation of universities, with similar backgrounds, many cultural heritage, wonderful projects that are now on the maps and that are being visited by the tourists. Our citizens don't anymore, I mean, most of them, of course, there are people that do not know about strategies, but they do not anymore think, okay, I have an issue, now I have to think about how to resolve it. No, now they think, okay, somebody must have similar issue, and let's try to find out how did they resolve it, or whether they did resolve it, or if they did not, how we can resolve it together. So one of those 3 questions they are now posing, which was unbelievable before, you know, and this is the result of this communication, interaction, and a vision, actually, of the European Union putting it. Yeah, we are a little bit slowed down with this fact that we have these balanced funds. This is Rosisov mentioned it, you know, and it's like, yeah, non-member states do have much smaller opportunities than a member state. It makes this balance within the macro-regional strategies, because, but we are learning a lot from the member states in this process, although it's like like when you put, how it's called, klackskalica, I don't know the word in English. On one side, you know, the children, on one side you put a tall guy like Bojan, and on the other side you put Besiana, you know, and of course the outcome is clear. But on the other hand, you know, it's kind of what Minister Konakovic mentioned, it's a carrot, and it's double carrot for us then, you know, because we can see through the strategy how far the member states have gone with the support that they have. So, thank you.
Thank you. Many positive experiences, many positive thoughts, which is very, very inspiring. Rostislav, Ukraine is in a very difficult situation, which is very, very true. But you keep being active in the Danube strategy all the time. So this is not something that you thought in most difficult times, something to drop. Why is that you keep being active? How is this macro-regional contribution, in addition to what has been mentioned by colleagues, actually helping Ukraine with your EU accession path?
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very good question. And we haven't as an option, if I can be very shortly, and for me and for us and for our team in Ukraine who was involved, we searched the instrument, what it can be instrument to where we have to cooperate. And the second, we understand that we are part of this region. And of course, we understand this EU policy, cohesion policy, social policy, economical policy. From other side, we understand that we are part of region. And we have a river and some two river, Tisa and Brdo. It's a part of Danube. And for example, it's a mountain region where the start of this is two river. And of course, maybe some of people don't know why they part of Danube, because you must understand this. This is two river. It's very important. This can be easy for him to understand. We are in a mountain. Yes, of course, and also we are part of river. Yeah, but we spoke about the very, very locally process. But in the national level, we understand that we are part of this process, and we understand that for us it's window. For us it's window to take a best practice. For us it's window to present what we can, and we are part of process, and we are ready to be involved in process. We are ready to be part for searching of for answer for question, not for what we can take for this, but what we can give for this process. And the second point, what I want, no, we haven't time to think about the important to stop, of course not, but it was something complicated sometimes, because I tell that some of instrument was closed for us, and every time we think how we can to change this, what its instrument can be open for us inside in this framework. And but also what I want to add about this, it was very interesting. Also, I think about this, that when you speak inside in the strategy, you understand in sometimes that in cooperation process, you are in the forward, you are ahead for the rules. For example, if you're planning to initiate some of projects and some of countries, and yes, okay, we go with this project to the social fund. Let's go to drafting of the project application. Yeah, sorry, we cannot be a part of social fund. Why? You are the strategy. We don't understand this, yeah? And also, it's not only one option, yes? And also the second option, for example, we have a status of candidate. But also many ask, yes, of course, you're automatically in IPA. No, no, no. Sorry, but we haven't the IPA. We have only candidate. And for IPA, important to have a special regulation to change or update regulation about the IPA. In this situation now EU found a special regulation the last week. It was approved. This is regulation as for Ukraine, special regulation for Ukraine as the IPA, what will be work for the next few years, for the 27 years. And in this framework, for Ukraine will be this instrument, for example, for pre-accession. And what I mean about that when you speak in the strategy, it's very good because many persons, many countries, many stakeholders, they don't think about it's open for you or it's not for you. If you are part of strategy, we understand that all instruments the same for us. But generally, it's not true, yes, technically. But I mean that in cooperation, we can be on a forward what we have a rule, what we have an instrument. This is an interesting case, why some of instrument close and why some of instrument open. And the second, what I want to say for this, about the Danube strategy, about the generally our involvement, it's a very good, interesting process for the, first of all, of the update of action plan of the strategy, because we have a very active work. We study in the Danube strategy how to organize drafting a document for EU rules. Maybe it's simple for persons who do this not the first time, but for us it's very interesting lessons to be a part of the drafting of action plan. It's not your nationally rules from the, I don't know, from the Soviet Union time, yeah? It's some unique new trends, new structure, new frameworks, new rules, new path, new levels, step by step, how you organize discussion, how you search a compromise, how you prioritize different topics. And this is it's very important for us. Some of challenge, also one of big challenge for us in the Danube strategy, and it's not unique for us, but the fact is that in Danube strategy, we have only 4 regions. It's not a national, all regions. And in this situation also, when we come in with the action plan for the Danube strategy, we come into all the ministry, and we tell them, we important to improve this document to our national policy. And it was also have a very long discussion because the first steps for us, different ministers, yes, it's a good idea, but it's only for the 4 regions. We have 24 regions. And how we can to improve? And our answer in this is structure of document. It's good not only for the 4 regions. It's good will be for the whole region, for the whole country. It's not a problem that in the Danube strategy we have only 4 regions. And you can do this also. It will be better for you, better for your integration, better for Europe in future. It will be better for your development, because this is document have a structure as a cohesion policy, have a structure with a different sectoral policy. It's very useful for you. And also when we speak about the different regions in the Danube strategy, we tell him, you can take this action plan. It's for you not important to draft new regional strategy because you have a full strategy. Okay, you can change some of point about some of national policy, I don't know, logistic or some infrastructure or transport band. If you speak about the ecology, if you speak about the social life, if you speak about the cooperation, this is all what we have in regional level. And this is what's helpful for the smart regional authority who understand how they can improve, how they can to take this as good document for implementation in the next times. And also for the last one I want to add, it's an embedding process, and I'm also very happy to, when I'm happy to the Danube strategy, not one point before this, and also we're very happy to tell that especially in the Danube strategy we understand many sentences, what about we don't know before this. For example, how is work cohesion policy? For example, what is a smart specialization? For example, how to planning from the strategically point, objectively strategically topics, and how you can see the result of this, how you can draft in indicators, and how you can to draft this, all this framework for development. This is all this simple topic, but we take this in Danube strategy. We take in Danube strategy cooperation with the different ministries, where our different ministries, ecology, Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, they beginning to communicate with the same partners as other countries. It's a platform for him. It's different topics. It's not for policy for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, yeah? How we typically know before. And it's a cooperation in the sectoral level. And for the last, what I want to add about the embedding. When we begin in processes embedding, it's also maybe will be very funny, but we understand that we have a many program where we are not a part of this program. And especially in the Danube strategy, we understand that we can to join for this program. And now I want to tell you for the last 1 year and a half, we are finalizing process for membership in 15 projects, 15 program. It's a Digital Europe, it's a COSME, it's a Single Market, it's a Connecting Euro Facility, LIFE, EU for Health, program for Fiscalis, program for Customs, program for Anti-Fraud. We didn't know about this before this, and only the Danube strategy give for us as colleagues, guys, it's your instrument, and we must understand how this instrument works and how you can to share the best practice from different countries and to take this better instrument for the better result. Thank you.
Thank you, Rostislav. Thank you very much for your answer. And could we understand that this is already an answer also for one single question that I selected from Slido? There were many of them, but the question was how to proceed in bringing macro-regional cooperation closer for strategic planning and enlargement. And this is exactly that you answered with your, let's say, concrete examples. Thank you very much. We are already out of time. For very short conclusion, as I announced at the beginning, a question to all the panelists, including our keynote speaker. With one simple word, what would be your takeaway for the policymakers, decision makers, what to have in mind when speaking in the implementation of the Danube priorities, making them through? Luciana.
Well, I would say to keep in mind that my takeaway is that synergies actually are working, even though that might sound a bit difficult to put them in place and to make sure that they happen. We had very good examples in concrete synergies, and my takeaway would be connecting also to the colleagues before, not to give up on this, but to keep working and make even more stronger connections between the different regions, between the different countries, and between policies, actors, and especially people on the ground.
Thank you. Zara.
Cooperation between decision makers and experts within the country and between countries. Cooperation and cooperation and cooperation. What is challenge is bigger than cooperation should be stronger.
Thank you very much. Bojan.
Well, I agree, cooperation, but in terms of not only cooperation on the paper, but also cooperation in terms of developing our countries and combining of resources that the different countries bring into the macro region. That would be a kind of takeaway for our policymakers, at least.
Thank you. Sanda.
What we're lacking is my takeaway word, and it's communication. Because our policymakers usually do not have this aspect of asking people what they need really, you know. So this inclusion of partners as wide as possible on all levels, that is something that I would really use as a takeaway word.
Thank you. And Rostislav?
Maybe I can repeat, but it will be very shortly. And for me, from my experience, what I want to recommend, to understand that not what we can to take from the strategy, but what we can do to the strategy, and for what we are coming, for what we cooperation. And how you can take, it's not for you, what you can give for this, for the better result, for the better development, for the better all of us, because we are a big family, and we are in one boat.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all the panelists. I think that you all deserve a very big Applause. And indeed, we need to look for the decade of the future. But this will be bright only if we will work together in a mutual understanding and mutual trust. And as Rostislav, you said at the beginning, not just taking, but also giving. Thank you very much.
Thank you for good moderation.
So, thank you very much, the panel. If you like, you can stay here or you can go down. It's up to you. It's a free country. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the last event of the Slovenian EU SDR presidency, which our country will technically hold until 31st of October inclusive. Then Austria, which has a holiday tomorrow, a long weekend and autumn holidays then, so they can't do much anyway, take over, but they already have the steering wheel. The Slovenian EUSDR presidency has focused on 4 institutional priorities: strengthening participation in the EUSDR, improving the strategic governance of the EUSDR and macro-regional strategies, embedding process and evaluation and further steps, and promoting as well as strengthening youth participation in the EU SDR. And there are also 2 thematic priorities towards a knowledge society and the professions of the future, and challenges in the field of transport and energy in the Danube region. So everything Slovenia does in this respect is about promoting and facilitating macro-regional cooperation in and between the macro-regional strategies. By being so active in the Danube strategy, the Alpine strategy, the Adriatic and Ionian strategy, and of course the Routes for You strategy. So one could ask why Slovenia is still not part of the Baltic Sea region. But we're a kind of Scandinavia of the Danube region because of our forests. As you may know, Slovenia is a country of forests which cover about 60% of our area. In terms of percentage of forests, Slovenia ranks 3rd in the European Union, together with Sweden and Finland. So we somehow belong also to the Baltic Scandinavian region. But that was already a little bit of romance. You're in charge of, because Slovenians are very romantic and we're a nation of poets.
Yes, Slovenian poet Tone Pavček said, "You are on the earth to see the sun. You are on the earth to follow the sun. You are on the earth to be the sun that shadows always shun." And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, you are like the sun. You work for a brighter future for Danube region and for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much and see you in Slovenia soon. Goodbye.